Have you noticed that as life gets busier and your calendar gets fuller, your heart can still feel emptier? Have you ever been surrounded by people and yet felt alone? Like nobody can really meet you where you are? Welcome back to the channel. Sit with me for a while. Let your breath slow down. Because loneliness is not just a social problem. It is a spiritual problem. It is a karmic problem. And it is also a doorway. If you walk through it with wisdom, loneliness becomes a teacher instead of a prison. Today, I want to share 2 ideas that can change the way you carry your life. First, the older you get, the more your relationships become selective. Not only because others change, but because you change. The childish closeness of constant availability fades. And what remains is the truth of who you are and what you have been avoiding inside yourself. Second, the relationship you most need to go deeply into may not be with another person first. It may be with yourself, not in a selfish way, in a healing way. Because if you do not know how to be with yourself, you will chase people to rescue you from your own mind. And that creates suffering for you and for them. I want to tell you a story. It is about a man named Daniel. Not a monk, not a celebrity, just someone who did what many of us do. He tried to build a stable life. He tried to be a good person. He tried to be strong. And he slowly became lonely without understanding how it happened. Daniel used to have many friends. In his 20s, connection was easy. People had energy. People had time. People met for no reason. Life was an open door. Then adulthood arrived like a quiet tide. Work got demanding. People moved. Relationships became serious. Some friends married and disappeared into family duties. Some friends chased money and stopped answering messages. Some friends carried old wounds and became difficult to be around. Daniel also changed. He became more sensitive to disrespect, more tired of shallow talk, more aware of his own limits. At first, Daniel thought this was just normal. Adult life is busy. That is what everyone says. But one night, Daniel sat on the edge of his bed staring at the glow of his phone. He had scrolled for an hour. He had read updates, watched clips, laughed at short jokes. And yet, he felt colder. It was not the loneliness of being alone in a room. It was the loneliness of being alone inside himself. He called a friend. No answer. He texted another. Seen but no reply. He tried again the next day. Busy. Next week. Another time. Daniel began to feel something that many people are ashamed to admit. He felt unwanted. And once that feeling takes root, it begins to poison how you move through the world. You start expecting rejection. You start interpreting silence as proof. You start protecting yourself by acting indifferent. You start telling yourself you do not need anyone. You start acting cold. And then people feel your coldness and step back. The cycle feeds itself. That is karma in daily life, not a punishment, a loop. One weekend, Daniel went to a meditation retreat, not because he believed it would fix loneliness, but because he could not stand the noise in his head anymore. The retreat was simple. A hall, a teacher, quiet meals, long sitting. On the first day, Daniel felt worse. Because when you stop distracting yourself, your hidden feelings stand up and introduce themselves. Sadness, fear, anger, old memories, regret. Daniel wanted to leave, but he stayed. On the second day, the teacher spoke about a sentence from a Tibetan Buddhist master. Mingwa you are Rinpoche, in a gentle modern way. The teacher did not quote long passages. The teacher simply pointed to the idea. The most important relationship you will ever build might be the one you have with yourself. Daniel felt resistance. He thought, that sounds like something people say when they have given up on love. But the teacher continued, and this is where it became real. If you do not know how to be kind to yourself, you will demand kindness from others in a desperate way. If you do not know how to be present with your own mind, you will chase stimulation and people to escape yourself. If you cannot sit with your own pain, you will try to outsource your healing, and then you will resent the people who cannot carry it for you. That is not because you are bad. It is because you aren't trained. Daniel listened and felt his chest tighten, because deep down he knew it was true. He had been using relationships like medicine. When he felt insecure, he wanted someone to reassure him. When he felt bored, he wanted someone to entertain him. When he felt stressed, he wanted someone to calm him. When he felt lonely, he wanted someone to fill the space. And when people could not do that consistently, he felt betrayed, so he protected himself by withdrawing. Then the teacher said something that changed Daniel. Loneliness is not only the absence of people. Loneliness is the absence of intimacy with your own experience. Daniel did not fully understand at first, but then, during meditation, he noticed something simple. He did not know how to be with himself without judgment. If sadness appeared, he attacked it. He told himself to stop being weak. If anxiety appeared, he tried to crush it with distraction. If anger appeared, he fed it with stories of blame. If emptiness appeared, he panicked and reached for the phone. He treated his own mind like an enemy. No wonder he felt lonely. He was not even living with himself in peace. That night, Daniel wrote a short line in a notebook. If I cannot be my own friend, why would I feel safe anywhere? It sounded harsh, but it was not meant to shame him. It was meant to wake him up. The next morning, Daniel tried an experiment. Instead of fighting his feelings, he practiced meeting them like a compassionate witness. When loneliness rose, he named it gently. Loneliness is here. He put one hand on his chest and breathed slowly. This is not childish. This is not dramatic. This is nervous system training. This is compassion reigning. He asked a new question. What does loneliness need right now? Not what does my ego want? Not what does my fear demand? What does loneliness need? The answer surprised him. It needed warmth. It needed acceptance. It needed honesty. So Daniel whispered to himself, quietly, not in a magical way, in a human way, I am here with you. He felt a softening, not a cure, but a softening. This is what people miss. They think the goal is to eliminate loneliness, but the deeper goal is to stop being afraid of it. When you stop being afraid of it, it stops ruling you. Then the teacher gave another point that struck Daniel like truth. As you grow older, you become lonely not only because others leave. You become lonely because you begin to see more clearly. You can no longer hide behind shallow connection. You want something real. But real connection requires real presence. And real presence begins with yourself. Daniel realized his friendships had often been built on shared distraction. Sports, parties, complaining, work gossip, jokes. When life got serious, those bonds did not have roots. Roots are built by honesty, kindness, and shared values. Roots take time. So Daniel stopped blaming his friends for changing. He stopped blaming himself for changing. He started understanding conditions. People are not always cruel. They are often overwhelmed. They are often afraid. They are often lost in their own loops. This understanding softened his heart. It also protected his dignity, because he stopped begging for attention from people who did not have capacity. Now here is where the story becomes practical. When Daniel returned home, He did not suddenly become surrounded by friends, but his loneliness began to change shape. He began to practice a different relationship with himself every day. When he woke up, he stopped grabbing his phone immediately. He sat for a few minutes and asked, "How is my mind today?" Not to analyze, to connect. When he ate with more attention instead of eating while scrolling. When he walked with his breath instead of filling every gap with noise. When sadness appeared, he did not rush to fix it. He stayed with it kindly. When anger appeared, he did not pretend he was above it. He watched it and asked what fear was under it. This is inner intimacy. And inner intimacy changes karma. Because when you are intimate with your own mind, you stop acting out unconsciously. You stop snapping at people because you are secretly lonely. You stop testing people to see if they will abandon you. You stop clinging. You stop pushing away. You become steadier. And here is the strange part. When you become steadier, people begin to feel safer around you. Not everyone, but the right ones. Daniel began to speak differently. Less complaining, more sincerity, less performing, more listening, less seeking validation, more giving presence. One day he met an old friend for coffee. In the past, Daniel would have tried to entertain, impress, prove he was doing well. This time he said something simple. "I have been lonely lately, not because I have nobody, but because I have been distant from myself. I am working on it." His friend went quiet, then said, "I thought I was the only one." That moment became a new route. They began meeting once a week, not for drama, for real conversation, for support, for honesty. This is how loneliness transforms. It becomes the doorway to authenticity. Now I want to talk about the deeper spiritual layer, because loneliness is also a teacher of impermanence. As you grow older, you begin to see that life is constantly changing. Friends come and go, roles change, bodies change. Even your personality changes. When you cling to the old picture of how life should feel, you suffer. When you accept impermanence, you soften. Softening does not mean giving up. It means you stop fighting what cannot be changed, and you start investing in what can be cultivated. What can be cultivated? Wisdom, compassion, presence, virtue. These are inner refuges. They do not depend on other people's moods. In Buddhism, a refuge is not an escape. It is a stable home for the heart. If you build this refuge inside, you stop demanding that other people constantly prove your worth. And then, you can love more freely. Because love is not desperate anymore. Love becomes generous. Now, some people listening might think, "But I truly do not have anyone." If that is you, I want to say this gently and clearly. Being alone is not a sign of failure. Sometimes it is a season. Sometimes it is a cleansing. Sometimes it is the result of moving away from unhealthy patterns. Sometimes it is life creating space so you can meet yourself. The first step is not to panic. The first step is to stop making loneliness into an identity. You are not loneliness. You are experiencing loneliness. That shift is awakening. Then the next step is to become your own steady companion, not in a narcissistic way, in a compassionate way. Speak to yourself as you would speak to someone you love. Take care of your body as if it matters, because it does. Keep promises to yourself, because self-trust is a foundation. Practice patience with your own mind, because your mind has been through a lot. Then, from that steadiness, reach out in small ways, not begging, not performing, just connecting. One message, one invitation, one act of service in a community, one honest conversation. And here is a crucial karmic truth. The best way to end loneliness is not to demand love. It is to practice love. When you become a source of warmth, warmth finds you. When you become a source of listening, people feel safe. When you become a source of steadiness, relationships stop feeling like storms. That is merit. That is karma. That is destiny being rewritten by conduct. Now let me share a reflection that may resonate with you personally. There was a time when I also confused connection with noise. I thought being busy meant being loved. I thought constant messages meant belonging. Then life forced quiet on me, and I felt the rawness of being alone with my own mind. At first it felt like punishment, but over time, I realized it was training. I learned to sit with myself without running. I learned to notice emotions without drowning. I learned to treat my own heart like something worthy of care. And when that happened, relationships changed. I stopped chasing people who could not meet me. I stopped forcing closeness where there was no trust. I started choosing deeper connection, even if it meant fewer people. And life became smoother, not because I had more friends, but because I had more peace. Now I want to bring this home for you. If you feel lonely as you grow older, do not only ask, "Where are my people?" Also ask, "How am I treating myself? Am I harsh with myself? Am I constantly judging myself? Am I escaping myself? Am I demanding that others fill a space I refuse to sit with?" If any of that is true, there is good news. You can change the relationship with yourself today, one breath at a time, one kind sentence at a time, one honest moment at a time. And as you do, you will notice something. Loneliness will not disappear instantly, but it will stop being poisonous. It will become quieter, more spacious, less scary. And from that space, you will naturally meet people in a cleaner way. Now I want to hear from you. Have you noticed loneliness changing as you get older? And if you have ever had a moment where you learned to befriend yourself, what helped you the most? Share your story in the comments. Someone reading it might feel less alone tonight. If you want more long-form videos like this about awakening, wisdom, karma, compassion, practice, and destiny, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support the channel so I can keep making deep dives like this, consider becoming a member. Thank you for being here. May you find companionship inside your own heart. May you meet others with steadiness, not desperation. May your loneliness transform into wisdom. And may your path become gentler because you are learning to live with yourself in compassion. Every person carries a certain energy. Your focus, your dreams, your purpose. Bracelet is a physical reminder of that energy. Symbol you wear daily that pushes you to stay grounded, balanced, and aligned. If one of the bracelets caught your eye, you can order it through the link in the description and check more powerful styles on our homepage store. Choose the one that strengthens your journey.